Our Hockey Insider, today and every day, brought to you by our great partners over at Pro-Am Sports. They've got a private signing with Ronnie Lowe. The deadline on that bad boy is May 6th. He's just one of the good guys, one of the good dudes. If you're looking for some J stuff, they've got you covered over there at Pro-Am as well. Another J season underway, but it is playoff time. If you do not yet have a car flag, do you even support the team? We'll get into that. You can get your car flags over at Pro-Am Sports as well. Mr. Gazdic, good morning, sir. How are you doing?
Good, fellas. How was San Diego, Dusty?
Man, San Diego's I know you told me, because I think we were texting right before I went down there, like, love it. Was there for a couple years. San Diego's an amazing city, buddy. Holy smokes.
What a city. What a place to play hockey, man. It was a great place to end my career, I'll tell you that.
What was the support like down there for the American League team?
So both the years I was there and the year previous, it was a 3-year AHL record. They led the league in attendance, just under 10,000.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
So we were about 9,800 we averaged the 2 years I was there. It was incredible. Older building, but they came out and supported us. And they had Friday. They had, dollar night with a couple colleges in town. It was just an unreal place to play.
Oh, that's good. I didn't know it would be that well attended. Yeah, that's incredible. We checked out Petco, went to a baseball game. It was phenomenal. Just a great city, man. I can't wait to go back. We're gonna have to go back because we didn't do the zoo. Like people are like, how do you not do the zoo? And we went to SeaWorld, we went to Legoland, we hit up a beach, we went to the Jays game. Just didn't have time for the zoo, so I'm gonna have to go back for the zoo, Luke. Which I hear good things about.
Petco's awesome too. What a baseball stadium that is.
One
of the nicest that I've been to for sure.
Yeah, when I sat down and they announced they're like, baseball, #1 baseball stadium in America. I was like, what? This is great. We're here. We made it to #1. It's amazing. All right, the Edmonton Oilers last night, they dropped game 2 in overtime. We were listening to Stuart Skinner earlier talking a little bit about puck luck last night. I see some, you know how it is in a market like this. Hell, Luke, you went through it. Like, people are freaking out for sure. When you watch that game last night, were the Kings getting some bounces? Is that what this was? Was there more to it? Does it change the way you view the series? How do you break down last night's tilt?
Yeah, I saw him last night too, post-game live, talking about the bounces. Listen, there were a couple that probably could have gone their way. The Byfield one on the winner included. I still don't even really know what happened there on the wall. But listen, at the end of the day, you got to get some saves. I don't think he was the reason they lost. But the Fiala one, especially off the wall, he just didn't look set. Kelly Rudy talked about him a bit in the intermissions and I thought he spoke pretty well about him. He just didn't look himself. It was a little bit different than I'd seen in starts past, but I don't think he was the reason they lost. Anytime you score 4 goals, though, you should win the hockey game. That was a huge thing from coaches throughout my career. If you can put a 4 spot on the board, you should usually end up coming out on top. But just a couple straight shots for Skins that I thought he should have. He did make some big ones, though. I'll give him that. Cammy Talbot on the other side, though, boys, was pretty good.
Well, Talbot, from game 1, Luke, I mean, being called upon in those certain situations, and I think we just said, in comparison to Skinner, outshining in those specific situations last night. But going into game 3, I mean, obviously Skinner will get the start. What's your leash with him right now, or what do you think the leash is with Knobloch and Skinner following last night, if there should be any question of said leash?
Yeah, I don't really even know if there is too short of a leash. This is your guy. I think he's got the keys right now. You let him have it. It would take something pretty dramatic for me to happen over the next game or two to have Calvin in there. Just because I think Skins has done it, the back half of the year. He's been their guy. He's got to be their guy. You got to instill some confidence in him as well. But in saying that, they got to go on the road and win a couple games here, or at least get a split. So kind of we'll see what happens in that.
It's like every time I watch Adrian Kempe, I'm like, wow, Adrian Kempe is awesome. And last night, he scores the first one, his second of the series. Then he bats the one out of the air that hit Bouchard's stick right before he made a play on it. I mean, that's just next level stuff. I mean, this guy's a stud.
He's a stud, and he loves playing against the Oil. I think that's what, seven goals, something like that.
Absolute
in the playoffs
killer.
Against. Yeah. Listen, I don't know. For me, I wasn't a huge scorer, but I will equate it that there's just some teams that you play well against, that you like playing against. It might be the building, might be the jerseys, whatever it is. It was on both ways. There were some teams that I knew I wasn't going to have a great game against, and some teams you just feel more comfortable. But man, he's I don't want to say underrated hockey player anymore. This is a perennial 30 goal scorer. He knows how to finish, and he steps up in big moments, right? Like there are just times and opportunities where he gets it and it's in the back of the net. He's an Oiler killer, man. And I don't know if you can contain him or defend him any differently, but he is certainly money right now.
Luke, certainly trying to draw a positive out of last night's game. Dylan Holloway, a pair of goals just under 10 minutes ice time. I know that fourth line, too, getting a little praise this morning, but what would you expect? I mean, we talked about him leading down the stretch of the regular season, kind of growing in confidence ever since he's come back, had a good stint down in Baco, but what, if any, I guess, changes would you, additions, subtractions, going into Game 3, looking at the lineup, and what would be your plans for Holloway, if any, in terms of elevation or something like that, heading into Game 3?
Yeah, he's playing some really good hockey, guys, and he's certainly forced the issue, not only getting in the lineup, but now he's forcing his way up the lineup. I think going into this, maybe it was just me, but I kind of thought it would be between a guy like Janmark and Holloway, but they've both looked good in the lineup together. There was a brief snippet where it was after Corey Perry's penalty in the second, where Holloway, it was on a change, where Holloway ended up on McDavid's left side with Hyman. And I'll tell you, that looked good. That looked really good. It was about as fast as it gets. And, you know, I started thinking about that, about lineup changes. The thing I like about Dylan on the fourth line is that he gives that fourth line a different dimension, and you need to spread out your scoring a little bit. That's a good thing to have when you can have some secondary depth scoring, but I might think about throwing him on that top line where Henrique is right now. I don't know if you slot in Rico now on the second line, maybe bump Foegele down to the fourth line left slot, because I don't know. I've really liked Perry and Kane together, and there was another shift right after that where Henrique was in the two of them, and that looked like a really good line as well. So I think this is a good thing for Knobs to have, is some decisions to make. But I'll tell you, man, Dylan's earning every single minute he's playing out there. He was on the last minute of the game. I think from 30 seconds under, he was out there. He's been responsible defensively, and he's just brought this kind of energy and jump that it has been really refreshing to see.
Yeah, he's been outstanding so far. It's funny because I saw some people, Knobloch, especially, you know, over the last couple months of the season, was not hesitant to kind of mix the lines up to the point that they started the playoffs with Henrique, with McDavid, which we didn't really see a lot since he got here. So how much tweaking can you do after one playoff loss? Like McDavid talked about it, I don't know, I guess it would have been probably a couple of weeks ago, saying like, that's just who they are. Like, they're a team that moves their lines around. Like, they move guys around. So do you be who you are here, Luke, or do you try to not like give the Kings any sort of like, oh, look, they're nervous, they're switching up the lines? Like, how would you approach this?
It's a good question. And I think I wouldn't want to be throwing them in a blender, but I think it gives them a different dimension and a different look if they do switch a couple things up. I don't know. It also depends on the matchups too, right? And now they don't have the opportunity of having last change heading on the road. So that's a big thing for them, right? If they're going to mix up their lines, they've been pretty reliable defensively. And I think that's the biggest thing, is now they have that luxury of deciding who they want on the ice last. And if I were Knobs, maybe a subtle tweak, but you don't want to mix too much up in the playoffs, because there's some good chemistry happening right now between a couple guys in the lineups that, you know, a couple lines are starting to develop. So I don't know how much I'd be changing.
A lot of criticism on the overtime winner for Darnell Nurse, giving Kopitar the space that he had. I don't know if we just didn't get a great look at it, but I'm with you. I don't know what ended up happening along the boards to get that puck right to Kopitar. But where do you come out on how Nurse plays that? How's he play that better?
Honestly, that play right there in the neutral zone, in his defensive spot, you should gap up, but you don't have to be right on top of your man. You don't have to have a stick length there. That's not the way they play. It's not a straight man on man, even in the neutral. But I mean, that's a dynamite play by Kopitar. Like, he gets it and he's gone. I just think, along with everyone else, that probably thought that was going to be an icing. And that's what happens in the playoffs and overtime, man. You take a second off, you sag for 5 seconds, 2 seconds, and it's in the back of your net. So I don't exactly fault Darnell for that. He's probably got to be a little closer on it, but he doesn't have to be right in Kopi's hip pocket, especially when a play is getting rimmed down the other side of the wall. I wouldn't fault him too much on that play.
Luke, before we just switch over to another series here, one last one on the Edmonton Oilers and the Los Angeles Kings. And, it's 1-1 right now. It's not the end of the world here for this team. Where do you think the Oilers are at mindset wise, being a heavy favorite coming into this series, now losing home ice advantage, but going back down to LA? I mean, I would assume they're probably in a pretty good spot mentally still.
I'd be feeling good. And I know you kind of touched on this before I got on, but these games, these high scoring games, 5-4, the more these go, this favors the Oilers.
Yeah.
This is not a Kings team that's equipped to win those games every night, especially with the goaltending that they had. I know Taubes had played well last night, but defensively in net, and I don't want to say their lack of offense, their lack of production, but this style of play, man, we focused on this really, really in detail with Winnipeg and Colorado on Tuesday night, because Winnipeg is trying to play this north-south track meet style with the Avs, and it's not going to work. And I see that the same in this series too. I just think Edmonton is fine playing this style. You don't want to have to outscore them every night, but if it comes down to it, they can do it. So I'd be feeling pretty good heading down to LA if I was an Oiler.
Gaz, before we let you go, how heavily are you involved in Willie Watch with Nylander and what's going on in Toronto? What's happening over there, man?
I've heard enough, to be honest. I just got off Toronto radio, and I think everyone's, I don't want to say panicking a little right now, but it's just so bizarre, right? Because he's skating and everyone's trying to find out what's going on, and he just means so much to the team.
Yeah.
Like, their power play went 0 for 5 last night. It's been atrocious. They need him back in a bad way. He gives them a different look for sure. But yeah, people are stalking him, taking pictures on the streets, and everyone has a different theory about what's going on. There's conspiracies flying everywhere. You go for a coffee, no matter where it is, everyone's talking, where's Willie? So hopefully he's back for, the next tilt here on Saturday night, and he gives the Leafs a little bit of a boost, because they certainly need him.
Playoff hockey. It's a fine time to be following all these storylines. It's good. Keep up the good work, guys. We'll chat next week, man.
Thanks, guys. Go Oil.